Good afternoon. It's a couple minutes after noon, so I can say that. I'm Karen Merrill, licensed clinical social worker and EAP provider and trainer for Reliant Behavioral Health. Thank you for joining us today for the Managing Holiday Stress training. Our goal within the next 50 minutes or so is to take a look at the season that's upon us. A season that is supposed to be joyous, but in fact can be very stressful. And we'll look at why that is and offer some tools to help make our holiday experience more enjoyable this year. We've also got some handouts that are available as part of the presentation. One of those handouts is just kind of our PowerPoint screens in miniature, and then the other is another kind of small pamphlet of sheets that describe some holiday stress tools. And we'll have probably about 10 minutes or so for questions at the end. So you can see that there's a little box at the bottom of the panel on the right of the screen. And if you choose to put your questions in there, we can answer them at the end. So let's get started. So the holiday season is here. We're in full force. Thanksgiving is behind us. We're actually in the 8 days of Hanukkah, and Christmas, Kwanzaa, and New Year's are coming up. So lots of holidays yet to experience. Lots and lots of things are involved in the holidays, things to do, parties to attend, tasks to accomplish. So what do the holidays make you think of? If you've done our trainings before, you know that we put out what we call polling questions and ask you to vote on certain things so that we get a sense of audience participation even when we're not all in the same room together. So when you think of the holidays, does it make you think of family? Does it make you think of gifts? Does it make you think of the time involved? Or does it make you think of money? So when you think about those four kind of categories, family, gifts, time, and money, what's the first thing that comes to mind as part of your holiday experience? So we'll give you a couple minutes to do your poll and vote, and then we'll get back to the group with the results. And Brenda Allen, who is our marketing and account administrative coordinator, is actually doing the organizing of those. So she's on the call as well.
Hi, Karen. So it looks like 74% voted family, 43% voted for gifts, 34% time, and 51% of the attendees said money.
Ah, so one more time, family.
74%.
And
gifts, 43%.
Okay.
34% for time, and 51% voted for money.
Okay. All right. So we have more than 100% as a total, but which is okay. It looks as if of the group, 74% say family comes to mind first, and gifts are 43%, time 34%, and money is 51%. So we're all kind of thinking about this in the same way, and we'll be getting back to these kind of sources of what comes to mind during the holidays. Again, can be sources of stress and sources of pleasure. So good to know kind of what your thinking is about that. So dealing with holiday stress, to set a backdrop for the season, what else goes on during this time while we're experiencing the holidays? Days are shorter, meaning that we have less light to accomplish the things that we need to. Sometimes that means that we have less time and energy because there's less light and sunlight. Our weather can be colder or rainier, which can impact how we experience our activities or our ability to get things done. We start having an environment that's kind of bombarded with messages. We hear about the holiday countdown, and as we shop, the malls are filled with decorations, there's music and food. In other words, there's lots of stimulus in our environment that is associated with the holidays, and sometimes different and extra than what we normally experience. The other thing about this period of time is that we have less free time. We're still living our life. We're still working and dealing with our family and all the other day-to-day activities that we have the rest of the year. So we have less free time to accomplish all the things associated with the holidays. It can oftentimes mean then that we're getting less sleep because of the other things we have to do. If you're like me, for many of us, when our list of things to do gets long, then exercise can be what gets sacrificed first. So the kinds of things that we do to keep us regulated during the year sometimes gets neglected. So we have less time for exercise oftentimes, less time to be alone. If we need kind of person that needs some space, we sometimes have less of that. Less relaxed time with family or friends because our schedule gets packed with other activities. At the same time, we're consuming more sugar and fat, which can be a different reaction to our system. We're attending parties where oftentimes alcohol is consumed, and that can be something that can be different as we begin to kind of come down from that. We have concerns about money. How are we going to pay for the holiday gifts and dinners and meals that we prepare? We have more responsibilities. We have more to do. You know, we ask, is this really a holiday? When I think about what holiday is, you think about a holiday as time off. You think about, sandy beaches and swaying palm trees, or reading a book somewhere. You think about a holiday as time to recharge, but oftentimes the holidays are more reason to feel stressed. So we really wonder sometimes if that's a misnomer. It can be a very busy and challenging time. So we looked again at these things, the sources of holiday stress, and they're also sources of pleasure for sure. But because there's lots involved, then they can be reasons that we can feel more pressure and stress during this time of year. So let's look back on holidays past and the memories and the things that come to mind and the things that we needed to accomplish. So if we take last year, we're going to look at another polling question here and look back to the tasks of last year's holiday season. How many of those did you enjoy and how many didn't you enjoy? And when you look back to the holiday events from last year, parties and get-togethers, how many did you feel obligation and how many did you feel enjoyment? So if you again would vote in these categories, we can also get a sense of what your participation is and what you're feeling about experiencing the holidays.
Okay, so it looks like for the first polling question here, 97% of participants enjoyed some of the tasks, and 3% enjoyed all of the tasks.
Okay.
And
So it sounds like that far and away the tasks and activities that were associated with the holidays were less reasons for stress, but much more reasons for enjoyment. So that's great. So the kinds of things really that we'll be talking about here will be ways for you to continue to be able to enjoy those holidays, events, and activities.
okay, and it looks like for the second polling question,
Yes.
The majority, an overwhelming 85%, enjoyed most of the past holiday events, and
That's
only
great.
19% felt obligated to attend.
Good. So you're looking forward to an enjoyable holiday season, and that's great. So one of the things that we experience during this time of year with what's on radio, television, and the malls is commercialism, how the holidays are portrayed, and happy families around dinner tables, Rockwell-looking paintings, a giant red bow on the Lexus as you walk outside your house, things that can set us up for disappointment. So commercialism really targets our vulnerability and can pressure people into buying gifts for making up maybe for time not spent with others during the year, particularly busy working families that feel pressured sometimes in spending time with spouses and children because of work obligations, can feel like, well, I'll make it up during this time of year. I can remember years past where there'd be what was like a gift of the year, the one that kids would be exposed to believing that that's the one they needed for Christmas this year. It can be difficult. It can promise unrealities, perfect families portrayed in advertisements. And sometimes, we can make choices based on habit and external pressure rather than really our own needs and our own values. So it can be a time where commercialism is a challenge for us to keep that in perspective and really zero in on what our own values are for ourselves and our family during this time of year. So just a little reminder about that. Other causes of stress for the holidays. Not everyone has an overabundance of things to do and things to accomplish. There are people around us who spend a lot of time alone and feel isolated because they're not part of a family or a relationship during this time of year. It can be a very difficult time for some people, and can trigger losses that are suffered during the year. We look at holiday season sometimes, particularly as we get to New Year's, as a review of the year. And we can have family and friends that we lose to illness, and relationships can have disruptions. So the holidays can be a time to kind of think back also on the losses suffered during the year. The other thing that is that it coincides with what we call the holiday blues or seasonal affective disorder, which in fact is a phenomena, as you may know, of less light, more darkness that can impact our disposition. So this can occur during this time of year, whether the holidays were going on or not, but it can be a challenge. And the other thing that can be a cause for stress is too much family. Sometimes we can spend more time than can keep kind of things just on the level. And too many family celebrations can trigger former conflict. So that's something just to kind of keep in mind. So how do we handle the stress that can be associated with family? The good news is that we're in control of how we manage our stress during this season. I always say the good news is that we're in control. The bad news is that we're in control because we get to decide whether or not we're going to do this differently or kind of get swept away in the holiday season. But making plans early and setting timelines can be a way of organizing all the things that are involved with holiday activities and events. Sometimes avoiding long visits. If family, if you're spending more time with family around the holidays than you used to, and if it were to be the case that old conflicts are triggered, then trying to kind of schedule those visits that are not quite so long. What is the expression? After a certain amount of days, fish and household guests begin to smell. We can be on best behavior for only so long, but it is a time sometimes where conflict's triggered, and so being mindful of how long those visits are can be helpful. Not expecting that we're going to settle old conflicts during the holidays, being realistic about what our families, our own particular families look like, and that we don't necessarily look like those that are portrayed in those perfect advertisements, but there are families and we enjoy them and accept our get-togethers as they are. Sometimes breaking traditions can be a good, healthy thing for families to do. Deciding that they'll do the big family get-together during the summer at a different time of year, being flexible with tradition, maybe going away or taking a trip somewhere together that doesn't have necessarily a holiday environment, and involving children, getting children involved in the plan of activities to set not only their expectations, but to give them a stake in the activities so that everybody is involved can be a way of making this much more of a family event. More about expectations. Hearing in your head or responding to commercialism that says, I must be with my family. Our home and family should look like Martha Stewart's. My kids should be excited and happy about it. My experience is that when we hear in our head words like must and should, it sets us up for disappointment. It's not what we would like or what we want, but what we think it should look like. And Martha Stewart's career is making her house and table look good. You have another full-time career. So cutting yourself some slack around what you want these holidays to look like can help give you and your children some realistic expectations about setting this bar in a way that's only going to cause stress and really disappointment. So taking a look at those things. Another kind of look at what our expectations. On the feeling side, I should feel happy, generous, and loving at this time of year. Financially, I'll disappoint people if I don't spend a lot of money. Competition, what will people think if we don't have all our lights up? My husband and I earlier this year moved into a new neighborhood. And during the summer, there was a kind of a neighborhood party, and they were sure to tell us that at Christmas, everybody in the neighborhood put lights up. And my husband and I looked at each other and said later, well, you You're not going to necessarily, it's not going to happen with us, because buying into that kind of thing can only kind of set you up for feeling more pressure to do something you don't really feel comfortable with. On the partying side, eating, drinking, and being merry, I have to drink and eat a lot to be part of the gang, to be part of the party. So kind of staying true to yourself and really thinking about these things can be much more helpful in the long run in terms of how you experience the holidays. More holiday busters, stress and holiday busters, reassessing and prioritizing. Sit down and think about, what is it about this holiday season that's actually stressing me out? Decide that if you have time, you'll do it, but that you're not going to probably get everything done just the way you want to. Delegating and not taking everything on yourself. Let family members be responsible. Create what we call a job jar, so that all the things that are involved in planning activities are divided up, organized, put in a jar, and we pick those. And if family members are coming from far away, let them do that virtually, so that it invests all of us and doesn't leave the burden just to one person. On the gift side, dispelling myths around gift giving. This is really a source of commercialism in our culture, around buying things and having things and topping last year. Dispelling the myths that our number of gifts measure the amount of love that you feel for another person. It's acceptable to spend at the holidays because it only comes once a year. Money to cover these debts will come from somewhere, that kind of magical thinking, and that this year's gifts need to be better than last year. What all this really ends up doing is valuing things over tapping into what the holidays really mean to us and how it reflects our own values rather than the values of what's around us and in society. More gift-giving rules. Give a gift to everyone you expect to get one from. When you add a name to your gift list, give them a gift every year thereafter, so that you're constantly just making that list longer. Gifts exchanged must be equal in value, so that means you have to kind of anticipate what the value of that other person's gift is, and this year's gift needs to top last year's gift. Sounds like a lot of pressure, and rules, I think, is the key here. We need to throw out these old rule books and make the rule book that we really want and feel comfortable with. More rules. If you give a gift to a person in one category, coworker or neighbor, give a gift to everyone in that category. What if they found out? Also make sure they're similar in value. Women should give gifts to their women friends, and this is really the one. Men should not give gifts to their male friends unless those gifts contain alcohol. So lots of old rules that contain lots of shoulds and musts that we need to throw out and decide what we really want it to look like. All the time that it takes to accomplish these things. Some tips on how to make that easier. Shopping earlier, unless you really love that last-minute hustle and bustle, and some people do. I mean, some people really do, and I think that's great. Love to wait till the last minute when shopping is crowded. But if you're not one of those people, make a list, shop early, take advantage of sales during the year so that you don't feel burdened. Making a list helps so that when you go shopping, you have a focus on what you're doing rather than browsing around and not using your time wisely. Refuse some invitations if you are feeling overwhelmed with the amount of things that are coming. This is a long haul. We need this, we need to be able to pace ourselves through the season so that we can enjoy it and have the energy. Keep that time for yourself so that you can kind of, fill up your emotional bank account and not feel like all your energy is getting tapped out. Having to, kind of dispel that feeling of not having enough to do by sharing tasks and responsibilities and saying no. Sometimes we need to really just say no to be able to set some limits. Money is a big one because the end of the year in January, when we start then to think about tax season and where that money is going to come from, we really do need to take control of this area and budget so that we don't have what we call a financial hangover after the holiday season. Think of alternative ways to give gifts. Maybe get the family together and you make some things or a project to take the community, or to decide that what you're going to do is pitch in money and donate that amount to a favorite charity. But thinking of really alternative ways that are less costly. Sharing the expense of holiday meals. It's expensive to put big holiday dinners together. So turning them into almost a potluck where you're not holding the bag for everything. Do activity, again, with friends and family that cost little or no money. Finding a reason for the season and focusing on these other kind of community projects or volunteering at a food bank or serving food to others on holidays can really make us feel much more grateful than all the other activities that are targeted towards commercialism. Like many things, we need to set some realistic goals. Pace ourselves, organize time, make a list, prioritize tasks, again, say no. To share kind of a personal experience, I had a very busy kind of weekend with holiday parties and had a plan on Monday to meet a friend for lunch that was about, 50 miles or so away. And I decided, all that's going to do is make my week more stressful. It just kind of adds stress. And so I declined the invitation, and without feeling terribly guilty about doing it. Because as I say, we're in for the long haul and we need to be realistic. Try not to spend too much time preparing for just one day. In other words, everything kind of targeted towards Christmas Day. Enjoy the activities as they come along and not heap a lot of expectation on one day. Set a budget and stick to it. It's kind of that, just getting rid of that magical thinking that the money will come from somewhere. How much can I use from income? How much do I want to use on credit? How much do I want from savings? So we really are trying to avoid the surprise factor after the holidays are over. 5 steps with coping for stress. We're going to go through each of these. Commitment, meditation / reflection, diet, exercise, and attitude. Making the commitment to deal with stress in a positive light is the key. If you commit to dealing with stress positively, you're already halfway there. And write it down. We find that our determinations or affirmations or things that we want to do, if we actually write it down, it makes it more of a reality. Decide not to get wrapped up and swept away by all the tasks and activities of the season, but committing to keeping some perspective, making sure you enjoy it for yourself and your family is the key. All kinds of research, as I'm sure you're fully aware, on the benefits of meditation and breathing. And you You may be a practicer as it is and not need a refresher. But one sample method is to close your eyes, listen to your breath, make sure you have deep inhales and exhales, quietly repeating one word to yourself, hearing yourself without speaking, and working up to 15 minutes or so in this practice can give you really a reawakening and a refreshing. So key to dealing with holiday stress is making sure that we're taking care of ourselves during this time. Diet. So it really is unrealistic to expect ourselves not to experience the holidays without all the goodies that we associate. And, you know, those homemade cookies remind us of our childhood, enjoying baking them and giving them away. And as a result, how to kind of offset this is to consume more vegetables, fruits, complex carbs, whole grains, make sure we're drinking a lot of water, particularly as we're drinking more alcoholic beverages at holiday parties. We need that water, and making sure that we're getting vitamins. So trying to keep this balance of the healthy foods that we're consuming as we're consuming and trying to consume a little less sugar, white flour that has little or no nutritional value, alcohol and caffeine, processed foods, fats. It's really asking us to be mindful and taking control of what goes into our body during this time of year. I would say that exercise should be kept, or if at all possible, kept in that routine, because it helps our body cope with the mental and physical effects of stress. It helps raise our serotonin during the winter months, helps bleed off stress. So I would say really try hard not to sacrifice the exercise when it comes to accomplishing the other activities. Stay committed to not letting holiday tasks get in the way. And if you're starting a plan around this time, or have started a plan, exercise plan, weight loss plan in the last few weeks, be realistic about that. Start slow and set attainable goals so that you feel the success of it. Attitude. Attitude is everything. Watch the negative versus positive self-talk, those messages that come into our head. I'll never get anything done. It's so stressful. I'll disappoint everyone. When you hear yourself doing that, switch that around and take a deep breath and ask yourself, what would you want to do? What would you like to do? Not what you need to do or have to do. Challenge yourself to look at the bright side. Again, it's the commitment to look at the positive things. And I really strongly stress the gratefulness exercise. First thing in the morning, last thing at night, think of 5 things you're grateful for. And again, write them down. Research tells us that makes us happier people when we do that. And what we find for sure is that your list of 5 can quickly become a list of 7 and 10. When we focus on all that we have to be grateful for, we feel better and we realize how rich and abundant our lives are. And we're really so lucky in the lives we lead. The other thing about that is sticking with that gratefulness exercise throughout the year, so that we just let that be part of our practice. Can be a really, really beneficial thing as we move forward. So really, the holidays mean different things to different people. Some people have changed their holidays routine long ago and will go somewhere, across the country to celebrate the holidays in a totally different environment. For some of us, it's cause to celebrate a religious holiday or enjoy family we haven't seen during the year. Making, baking, and enjoying those family treats that mean so much to family tradition and celebrating. For others, it really is helping others and being active in the community. Thinking about positive holiday memories, I think, is really helpful during this time of year. What it was like to be in your family as a kid and focusing on those positive aspects are really helpful. So the last thing before we kind of break into the handouts for questions is that we're going to offer this holiday contract. So you might decide that you think about some of the suggestions we made today and say, I'm going to start doing such and such. And in thinking about maybe some of the things we've done in the past that have gotten in the way, that you commit to not doing that. And then you're going to celebrate the wonderful traditions that you've always enjoyed and make sure that you make time for those and continue to do those. So that can be part of your contract as well. But above all, I would say, take time for yourself. Create a holiday that works for you and your family. And we thank you so much for attending today. So any questions that you have, please type them into the little box at the bottom. And while you might be doing that, then I'm going to kind of, I have the handouts. One of our set of handouts, I think I mentioned before that it was the miniature slides, and then the other one are some more tips. And the packet is called How to Avoid the Holidays, HOLIDAZE. And the first sheet in that packet is planning ahead for an enjoyable season, to ask us to focus on what we like best about the holiday season and how to experience it with those things underscored. Recognizing what is most stressful and how to change that. Being aware of our own trouble spots, and we all have them. Is it gift selection? Is it family? Is it eating or drinking? What of those things do we need to be mindful for? Having children and bringing them into that plan. Tips for taking care of yourself. And then another sheet on finding the true meaning of the holidays. Really, it gives us a checklist to help clarify what the holidays mean to us and setting priorities and ranking them, because this is a short amount of time and we want to make sure that when all is said and done, we've enjoyed it the way and experienced it the way we choose to. And then we have another sheet on holiday stress and sources thereof, and some sort of things that we talked about in terms of messaging. And then the last one is a holiday plan that lists the areas that occupy our time and energy during the season, checking those off, and then really kind of giving you a work plan for how to take control of those things. So that about wraps up the presentation section. Are there any thoughts or questions that you have that you'd like us to respond to before we close? So it doesn't sound like anybody has anything that they want to share or ask. And so unless something comes up in the next, if you want to kind of chime in here right before we close, we want to thank you for attending the presentation and hope you have a very enjoyable season.